Also, don't forget, podcast. If you can't watch this and you're driving to work, McInnes Marketing Minute on all podcast avenues. We've got our voices only.
Yep. Which, if you can't stand the sight of us, is probably a beneficial.
Still take the information if you don't want to look at us.
What's up, guys, and welcome to this week's McInnes Marketing Minute. As you can see, back on the rooftop, beautiful weather, making the most of what's left of summer. Unfortunately, it's come into that time, but as it is September, that does mean that we have
the August Real Estate Boards statistics, which we've been anticipating.
Yes, we've been anticipating them eagerly after the month that we had in July. Got a lot of people's heads turning, as July is typically one of our slower months as per se. Jay, you can talk about our usual trend when it comes to buying and selling in throughout the year in real estate in Vancouver.
Yeah, to that, July was the first real pickup since the market began to soften in activity and a softening in the listing numbers. To the trend, typically we're seeing spring market activity as a high point, soften through the summer months, pick up again in the fall, and then soften again into the winter.
Yeah.
So that's the typical line trend that we're going to see year over year, which we're commonly asked about. But July this month, a unique month to have an upswing, has got a lot of people talking and us excited to see what follows, to see if it is going to turn into a bit of a trend here. Yeah.
So May typically tends to peak up here, then we tend to see that dip through to, like Jay was saying, to the fall period. But July actually was a shocker month. The market increased by almost 25% when you're looking at sales, and the amount of inventory on the market decreased as well. And it had a lot of people talking about, have we now reached the bottom of the market? And there was a lot of talk about, no, this is a one-off. So we'll see what happens in August. What was that? The world's largest stapler.
Solid. Jesus.
So everyone's been eagerly anticipating August to see what happened with the figures, and August did follow suit as well. So it's becoming a bit more of a first initial signs of a trend.
It is. So we've got increased sales numbers in all categories that we follow, east side and west side of Vancouver, and decreased listing inventory in all categories.
And that rings true. So the market as a whole for Metro Vancouver, it increased by 15.7% year over year. So this is August 2018 versus August 2019. The home price index, which is the average price for a home, whether it's detached, condo, townhouse, whatever it may be, that's slowly been decreasing over the months. June it went down 0.8%. July it went down 0.3%. August it went down 0.2%. So that's coming further and further down. More product has been moving all across the board,
which is what I'm excited about personally.
And again, don't get confused, guys. We're not saying, for those of you who are thinking, oh, great, market is changing and prices are going to start soaring, that's not the case. We're talking about reaching the bottom here, and the trend which shows old product is coming off of the market, new product is coming to market, transitions are taking place, and we see more of that kind of buoyancy phase right there. So once again, though, as we always preach, always make sure you're looking at your particular geographical area and product type as well, because the numbers can, although they've all shown the same, they can drastically change by quite a bit. As you know, we focus heavily on Vancouver on the west side and on the east side, and a bit in the Burnaby area, particularly in the detached market as well. And things were looking very positive for our area. A lot of the time, Vancouver downtown or like east and west tends to start the trend, because the more condos start selling, the less pressure there is on housing, specifically detached houses, and then things start to move, and that definitely happened over August.
Yeah, so we can jump through some numbers if you want. East side, west side.
We'll pop the chart up on the screen here so everyone can follow along with us.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to go through it as well, or just let them run?
No, let's go through it. So I mean, as you guys can see on the east side, condos, so versus the amount of new listings to market August last year, that reduced by 6.79%, and the amount of sales that took place increased drastically by 21.5% versus last year, which is huge figure. So again, The market overall increased sales, Metro Vancouver 15.7%, yet when you look at specific area, it shows quite a different figure. And then you can obviously do east side on the houses.
Detached east side, sales are up 25.8% year over year, which is huge. And then the listing numbers are down just under 13%. So we've got, again, a lot less inventory and a lot more sales taking place in the detached east side market.
Yeah, west side condos, again, the listings, they dropped by 7%. So 7% less new listings this year versus last year. And then we saw an increase of 16%, so actually 15.97%, so very typical of the general area.
Yep.
For condos down the west side and obviously west side detached.
West side detached sales up 3.45%, and then inventory down just under 25%, 24.55% down. So you got a lot less to choose from, and that activity on the sales side is still climbing.
Yeah, Burnaby was an interesting one as well because
the most interesting.
Because when you look at Burnaby sales last year versus this year, as you can see up there, they increased on the detached side by 55%.
That's
phenomenal.
Huge. So obviously the Burnaby market, you're getting more bang for your buck than the Vancouver East Side market, which is its neighbor, of course. And just over that border, there's a lot more. There was a lot of activity in the East Side housing, but a lot more in the Burnaby, substantially more. So people are seeing that value and making a move.
Yeah, it's good news if you are thinking about selling in the Burnaby area at all.
And this is huge. Yeah, and this is the information that I think is most important and exciting, because this shows that there's increased activity. Now, to Ben's point earlier, this isn't to say that even though the percentages are lining up with seller's market or buyer's market, leaning towards the seller's market, it's not to say that prices are going to start to fly, but definitely showing that there's a floor. And people at these current levels are taking advantage. They're making purchases, and the amount of those purchases are increasing.
Yeah, so to put it in perspective, the sales to active ratio is what analysts typically tend to determine whether we're in a buyer's market, a buoyant market, or a seller's market. So when a product type is under 12% for a sustained period of time, that sustained period of time is subjective, obviously that can change. That puts pressure on prices to come down. When it's above 20% for a sustained period of time, it puts pressure upwards. So as a blended rate across Metro Vancouver, we're sitting at about 16.7% right now. So we're in that buoyant market stage. And the idea is like we keep stressing, is not that prices are going to keep inflating upwards at all, but it's going to be more of a buoyant market. I mean, you can break that down, and the condos have been above 20% for the last couple of months.
Yep.
However, that sustained period of time, do we see the prices of condos increasing? Maybe once it balances out a little bit, but I don't see it being like a drastic change at all. And at a blended rate, we're sitting in that buoyant market stage. Yeah,
and again, that shows the belief, and that's great for both buyers and sellers. Whichever way the market goes, it's going to go, but the most valuable thing is to have information on the micro market that you're either selling out of or buying into. And because of this increased activity, we're seeing comparables. And the comparables are mounting, and these are re-justifications and re-clarifications of the benchmark pricing in those areas to paint the clearest picture of today's value, which is what we want, because that makes us not have to throw a dart at the wall and pick a price, because we're working on percentages, but we see a lot more sales taking place, which is key.
It's good for our economy overall as well.
Of course.
Well, guys, that sums it up for this week. Short and sweet. You can find all the information on our blog as well if you want to read it and go over the information again. Of course, leave any comments. We welcome all positive and negative.
We need
down
some
there. We'll do our best.
Conversation pieces in the office, so all comments welcome.
We'll do our best to answer any questions you have quickly. Again, thank you for tuning in and watching. We will see you next week.